So go ahead and crowd in, folks. If you're like me, you were raised so you can't walk on a grave. I'm fine with that, and I appreciate that, but I just want you to be able to hear. The two Spielman brothers that we highlighted for this walk is Aaron and Jess. These guys are really unique because Aaron joined the Wyoming Guard, which was an infantry outfit at the time in 1916. So the state was trying to put together a regimental-sized unit to go south to the Mexico border to fight in that campaign that was down there at the time. And so Aaron joined and was part of that. The Wyoming Guard at that time were infantry. When World War I broke out, and the unit was called to active duty in 1917, they were one of the first National Guard units called up for World War I. And so they all gathered up. They went down to Fort D.A. Russell, which is now the Air Force Base down in Cheyenne. They took a train and took them to North Carolina. When they got to North Carolina for training, it was determined that they were going to convert the Wyoming guys to an artillery outfit. Well, at that time, the United States did not have modern field artillery. Like with every war, it seems that we get involved in, maybe not so much now, we're never, as Americans, really ready for a war. Americans hate to spend money on the military, and it takes a lot of money to support a military. At that time, we were really averse to having a large standing military, so there was less than 500,000 guys in the entire United States military in all branches of the service when World War I started. So almost immediately 1 million guys were called up initially in that initial draft. Interesting thing about that is that back in Missouri there at Camp Funston, the soldiers that arrived there were no barracks, there was nothing. And so the soldiers themselves had to build their own barracks, their own chow halls, and all of that kind of thing. So that was where we were at the start of World War I. So you've got the two Spielman brothers. Jess is right up here, and we'll stop at him for just a minute. But the two went over, and since the United States didn't have good artillery, the French did. So these guys practiced on wooden guns and stuff like that, and then they loaded up, shipped them overseas, arrived in France, and French artillery instructors took them into hand and taught these guys how to shoot artillery. Now the artillery that they used was a 155 millimeter howitzer, which is a big, heavy howitzer. And at the time, these guys, all of our stuff was horse-drawn for the most part. When they arrived in France, the France used prime movers. They had, they had big trucks and stuff they were able to move these big howitzers with. So the incredible thing is, in my opinion, is this unit was trained up and went into battle at Belleau Wood and Chateau Thierry on July 4th of 1917. So they're one of the first units from the United States to actually get involved in combat. Now these guys were what we call reinforcing artillery. So these big cannons would shoot a 100-pound projectile about 12 miles. And so these guys, their primary job was to shoot German artillery and then fire support for the ground pounders, the infantry guys and stuff that were involved in the battle. They fought in every single combat action in the First World War from start to finish. So that included the Champagne-Marne defensive, and that's when the Germans were almost to completely take over France again. And then the Aisne-Marne offensive, the Saint-Mihiel offensive, and the Meuse-Argonne offensive. After the war was over, after November 11th, 1918, these guys then went into occupation duty in Germany. They went to Germany and they were there until June of 1919 when they came back to the United States when they were finally done. Funny story about that, and I don't remember which brother it was. I think it was probably Aaron. But when the guys arrived in Germany, they were told you can't fraternize with the Germans. Well, you know, American soldiers, that the maximum effective range of that was about that far, because immediately the soldiers got involved with the local people. And a lot of times the German people didn't have food and different things, and the American soldiers started feeding those people. And the German soldiers that were being returned to Germany from France at the time came in on trains, and they'd unload the trains and different things. Well, at one point, and I think it was there in Spielman, but I don't remember for sure, he was getting out of a truck, and all of these German soldiers were standing there by the truck, and he handed the German soldier his rifle while he was climbing down out of the truck. NCO came up and said, "What the heck do you think you're doing?" And he said, "You know, the rifle's unloaded, and these people aren't any threat to us anymore at all, you know." So I love this story because that's so typical. And of course, the occupation duty, there's a lot of photographs of that when they were in Germany. They were more interested in the trains and the bridges and the local people. Most of the GIs went to local photographers there in Germany and had their pictures taken. You've seen in your program, if you have it, there's a beautiful photograph of a guy we're going to talk about in just a minute, Rock Amy, and that was taken when he was on occupation duty in Germany. So a lot of the photos you see of American soldiers from World War I in their uniforms and stuff, they'll have their service stripes so you know it's taken after the war, and they were taken in Germany.